We should be live now. Hello. Hi.
Hello.
Say hi if you're joining us so we can see you. But I'll get started because I am super excited and I've got so much to talk to you about, Georgina. So people that have seen this before may know me. I'm Leanne Muskell, the author of ADHD and A to Z and director of ADHD Works. And I'm super excited to be here with you today. Please give us a little intro, Gina.
Hi folks, my name's Gina or Georgina. I am a brand new ADHD coach and we're going to talk a bit about my journey today. I'm also a neurodivergent leader in technology and I've been working in different tech roles and leading mass scale technology projects for the last six to 10 years in different roles, and also most recently founded a charity about 2 years ago.
You're a very amazing person. Like, you just do so much. And as we were just saying before, so we first actually interacted when you kind of applied in the beginning to come on this podcast, when I had my very ADHD idea of putting it on the internet and saying, anyone that wants to come on the new podcast, just drop me a message. And we received like 100 emails. Poor Beth, poor VA, Beth. But yeah, how does it feel for you to look back at that point of like when you first found me and ADHD Works and now to be here like a coach?
That's a pretty big question. And kind of sounds really impressive when you say it like that, I think. When I first sent you a message, it was my ADHD brain going, I'm just going to say yes to everything. That sounds like a really good idea. I want to talk to somebody about ADHD. And then off the back of that, we then started talking about a coaching course for myself. And we set some intentions at the beginning of some big goals of, me wanting to become a coach. And we also broke that down into some smaller bits, which I think we'll get into in a little bit. And now we're here having a conversation in a completely, different frame of mind. I'm super excited to see where this conversation goes.
Yeah. And I'm so excited to see where you go because we started coaching 3 months ago. So we're just finishing up now. And so people that are joining this might know that basically I've just launched an ADHD Works Coaching Course, which is very, very exciting. And we've really got people that have joined up. Because I've coached a few people since becoming a coach myself. I've coached a few people to become ADHD coaches and train them up. And it's one of my favorite things to do because it's like taking something that can have the impact to change someone's entire life and the way they see themselves and giving that to someone else to like put out into the world. And then doing it with you most recently and combined with the fact now I know how to make courses. I've got 5 courses and counting. You actually did one of my first courses, the ADHD one. I was like, okay, this is a great time to create this ADHD coaching course to be able to teach lots of people at the same time instead of just one person. Yeah, and I think that it would be really great to start off there with like the question of what is ADHD coaching and like how do people even get into that? Because for me personally, that's not something I would have even thought about when I was diagnosed with ADHD. I definitely wouldn't have seen ADHD coaching as a job that I wanted to do in the future, seeing as I didn't even know I had ADHD when I was younger. And somehow now ended up here in this tangled, squiggly career path, like just doing what I love every day. So for you, Georgina, how has your journey been? Like, especially like, how did you start out even learning about ADHD? What has your journey been there?
I like the word squiggly. I feel like a lot of my life has been very squiggly. I felt like at school and most of my adult life, I didn't fit in. I always tried so hard to make friends, to be in social groups that I felt like I really wanted to be in, but looking back now were quite detrimental, I think is the right word to me, because I was striving to fit in and to put myself in this box that everybody seemed to know what they were doing in. And I felt like I was on the side of this box, like, what's happening in the box? I want to be a part of the box. And then started to do a bit of research into ADHD. Someone said to me once, I think you have it. And I was like, maybe. So I started doing some research and I found Ellie Middleton on LinkedIn, who is an ADHD activist, an absolute powerhouse of a human being. Check her out. Who then led me to a post of Leanne. And I think that one choice interaction of I'm going to respond to your call for speakers has completely changed my life. to be in this position, going back to what we were saying at the beginning, of 3 months later, to be like, I'm a coach, I'm an ADHD coach. And a few months ago, I was diagnosed probably about 2 years ago. And now I feel like I know more about ADHD and how my brain works than I ever did 2 years ago.
Yeah, that was pretty similar to my experience there of like when I was diagnosed, it's just like, well, then, like, okay, they've given me medication, and it was an awful, horrible, like, lonely experience. And we didn't have people like Ellie here. I was the coach. Love you, Ellie. Out there who, or I guess like people like me, like giving the coaching and like that being even something people talked about. I was just like, okay, I'll just take this medication and hope for the best. And there wasn't an opportunity to like ask anyone any questions because I had to pay hundreds of pounds to talk to the psychiatrist every time. So it was a really horrible process. But then when I found the coach, like everything changed for me because it was being able to see those symptoms, especially the ones like rejection sensitive dysphoria, which I definitely felt really strongly. But that's not in like the ADHD diagnostic criteria. That's not something that ADHD medication helps with anyway. And ended up being something I actually talked to the World Health Organization about this year because I was like, because that's not in there, that's why so many people are going missed, because it's such an outdated set of criteria. But having a coach helped me like actually learn strategies for dealing with that and ways to work through it instead of just being like flawed every time. And I should mention before, like if anyone's got any questions in general about coaching or anything, put them in the chat and we'll answer them at the end. But yeah, so for you, Gina, like when you were diagnosed with ADHD, like what was that process like?
For me, it was a really difficult process. So someone said to me, I think you have ADHD. So I'd looked through a whole bunch of notes and websites and just kind of went into a bit of a rabbit warren of, is that really me? And I wasn't sure it was. And then I don't think I got to the point of an NHS diagnosis because the process was taking a really long time, and I was lucky enough to be able to go private. However, the process that I went through of, I answered a bunch of questions, someone from my childhood also answered a bunch of questions, and somebody from my life at the time, though that was then taken with me to a psychiatrist that I spoke to online. We answered the same sort of questions, and at the end of it, he went, you've got ADHD, here's another set of information. You need to then go and get some medication. So the finding a coach, I think, has been really helpful for me to be able to then explore all of those other bits that I just had loads of unanswered questions. But the interesting thing for me in the next bit of the diagnosis process is when I went for a bunch of blood tests, I found out that I had hypothyroidism, which meant that I couldn't take the medication. However, that floored me for 7 or 8 months. So if I hadn't gone for an ADHD diagnosis, then I wouldn't have known as quickly about my hypothyroidism, and physically and mentally broke me. So to be able to be in this position now to say, I've come through those things and I've learned strategies of, well, we're taking a lot of stuff I knew from my technology roles of how do you take really big things and make them into really small things, but never really thought about relating them to myself. And what we've been able to do is to use those types of techniques that I learned in my technology role, put them into my own life and add a bit of sparkle and colour, and been able to go, oh, actually, this is how I want to live my true life and be my authentic self.
Yeah, I love it. Thank you. Yeah, and I think it's really important. I think your insight as well and your experiences there with what you're talking about, like hypothyroidism. Is that what you said? Does that sound real coming out my mouth? But like different. I think people with ADHD have got so many comorbidities, especially things to do with thyroid, like chronic fatigue, chronic pain, and there's not very much out there for that kind of help. And like also, I think that anyone can coach anyone, but it really helps if you've got an understanding of what that person has been through because you have lived it yourself, just with the trust and relatability there. And also, especially like I've had so many people come to me with coaching as a like alternative to medication, and like how I see coaching versus medication is like, or even finding out about ADHD is like, okay, I can literally see the mess around me now. great, but you don't get given any tools in like how to deal with that mess. Like you still don't have a routine for cleaning or like know how to use the various cleaning items. And that's where the coaching can step in. And like for me personally, that was like, that's, I think a lot of people go through a similar thing where like after being diagnosed, things actually can get a lot worse because no one is there to like hold your hand, support you through that. And you can suddenly see a lot more, but you don't actually know how to deal with it, which is where the coaching steps in, is really, really important. Because yeah, how did you find out about ADHD coaching?
I think it was through LinkedIn. I think I found Ellie, and then I found a post that you made to call for speakers for this podcast, this streaming thing.
Yeah.
I think I might have followed other LinkedIn ADHD coaches, but I guess when you're a kid, you don't really know coaching exists, or there's so many roles that have been created between when I was younger and now, let alone all of these new roles that are going to be created in the future. And I think what coaching helps with is the strategies and the tools to be able to help you with the journey, rather than I want to be this specific thing, and it helps you to get to whichever point and then also move further than that point, because when you get to that, I don't know, I'm a coach now, what's next? And it allows you to go through the journey, the squiggly path that is life.
Yeah, holding squid. Got this tan, like it's so squiggly. Like literally. Yeah, I think for me having coaching was like, oh, it's okay. Like that. Like I wanted to share how I found coaching because I got a job in law after I was diagnosed with ADHD, like mental health and disability law and immigration law. And I was like, should be my capitalist happy ending. I finally managed to get a real job. Woohoo! And obviously, like, I still have the same brain. And just because I managed to get a job didn't mean that like suddenly everything was fine. And I met someone who was a coach, and I had like developed all these ways of masking my own symptoms throughout my life. And for me, I would often help others. So like I had a friend that was like having financial problems, and we would read out like our bank statements to each other every Saturday. Really helpful thing to do, actually. But these kind of like ways of kind of coaching people around me. And yeah, when I met someone that was a coach, they said, oh, if you want to be a coach, you should get a coach. And I was like, all right. I talked to a coach. He was like, oh, we all have trouble doing the things we want to do. And I was like, no. I was like, my problem is not that. My problem is that I want to do too many things and I do all of them. I was like, that's my problem. I need help like reining in the brain. And she just did not get it and was really like, well, why don't you do it this way? Like, it's just about time management and organization. And I was like, yeah, that's exactly the things that I'm actually struggling with. It's just like, have you used the to-do list? I was like, yes. Yep, I have used the to-do list. Got 500 of them. But yeah, and so it was that kind of thing. And actually, it was really helpful talking to her because I got so annoyed by it that I was like, oh, I need someone, this ADHD thing, that's what I need. Googled ADHD coaching, found one immediately. And that woman, she used to be a Magic Circle City lawyer. And she had left and set up her own company, the ADHD Advocate. And I was like, you can help me. Had a conversation with her. I was literally like moving around my garden, like car park, which is funny because how I talk to people now. They're just like at a pub. They're like, blah, 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 coaching. Here is my entire life story. And I'm like, cool. And that's what she did for me. And I'd never felt so seen by someone and like connected with them. And we're like, oh my God, this person has got a brain like me. This thing is real. There is hope. I'm helpable. And then at the end, she was like, oh, and also the government can pay for your coaching. I was like, are you what? Because I had spent so long like scraping together money for therapy and being like, okay, maybe this therapy is going to help me feel more normal. But finding out about access to work and like learning that I could apply for that was just the most amazing, unbelievable experience. Managed to get that. And then once I started coaching with her, like published the ADHD book myself, because again, it was like just knowing things like learning about the executive function and motivation and like what kind of strategies can actually help us do these things like time management that aren't being told things to like manage your time better, but actual like practical tools that will help you do that. And like very interactive and tangible, like moving someone forward, which just impacted all of my life. And the same thing, as you said, that like then once I left and became a coach, it's like, okay, now what? That's the tool. We've got and it's coaching. So like a big part of why I made the course is that we've got a waiting list right now. I've got 80 people on the waiting list. I have too many people. Like since starting, I've just been so overwhelmed with demand. And there's not enough coaches out there because of the things that you just talked about, like doesn't exist as a real job. It's not like one that your careers advisor will tell you to do at university. People often fall into it, and that's why like this really important thing that can help so many people that need the help needs to be more widely accessible for people. Because yeah, I know that now, Gina, you're at the start of your journey with coaching people with ADHD, but like what was it that made you want to become an ADHD coach yourself?
Similar to one of the points you touched on just a minute ago. So I found you and you've completely changed my life. So being able to go from not understanding my brain, knowing I had ADHD, to in 3 months, and it's a pretty short turnaround to be able to say I'm confident in coaching other people. But I think that you hit the nail on the head. There's not enough people that can help people like me,
Yeah.
whether that's me right now, whether that's me 2 years ago. So I've been working in technology consultancy for 6 years, and it can be a really non-ADHD focused type of industry. So consultancy, you're there to support a client in their needs, and when you want to try so hard to please other people and to get things right, and you're a massive perfectionist like me, and you find it's difficult to ask for help because you don't want to let people down, it can be quite a difficult environment for an ADHD brain like mine to be in. And being able to take the strategies I know from ADHD coaching around, you have this big thing, what is it, and how you break it down and how you make things fun again, has really helped me to be able to do my job as a delivery lead in a technology role, but also pursue this parallel path.
Yeah. Because yeah, exactly as you're saying, like that's a big part of why I wanted to create it, because I also like going to companies, and I know you are also going into companies and training them up on ADHD. And that's the thing, like actually anybody can do this. It doesn't have to be like me. Anybody can do this. But when I would go in and train the companies, and when I coach people and talk to their managers as well, like often for the managers, it's just learning about ADHD, like the basics and like how to get the most out of your ADHD employee. I recently went to the GP for a long time, for a long appointment, where they unsuccessfully tried to get something out of my arm. But she was there like talking to me about how they get people every single day coming through looking for ADHD assessments. And she's like, we feel so helpless because all you can do is put them on the waiting list. And she's like, we don't know what else to do. And I'm like, well, have you tried this? Why don't you talk to them about this? But it's like all of these things that you wouldn't necessarily know about if you didn't have the time for that extra bit of training. And like even teachers just being able to like spot ADHD, but also know how to support people with it, because it's actually really simple, but it just requires a bit of a different approach to what is like neurotypical. And the truth, I put a post up recently about managers, because I knew a manager that was like, oh, I would never give someone like the highest feedback, like good feedback, basically. Because she was like, I don't want people to get like accustomed to working, like for their standards to drop. And I'm like, that's the worst way of coaching, of managing someone with ADHD, because we thrive on good feedback. We're like if you give someone the good feedback and you highlight the wins and the successes, especially after a lifetime of like being told that you're doing things wrong and feeling like giving up all the time, that's like a really simple strategy. And like knowing how to highlight the small things, like pausing with people, like having those sessions in. But it doesn't have to be like an ADHD coach. You don't have to do like the course, for example, and become an ADHD coach, but you can just incorporate it into the life that you're already living. Yeah, because what is your plan? Like what kind of future do you want to be having?
Before I answer that question, I want to touch on something about the simple things. I think in the workplace, whether it's a remote workplace or whether it's in the office, the idea that reasonable adjustments are these huge things that are going to make this massive difference. Honestly, things like writing things down before a meeting, being able to give an ADHD brain the time to process. We're going to talk about these 5 things, for example. It doesn't need to be a lot of information, because actually sometimes that's too much for my brain. But anyway, the ability to give a bit of information to frame the conversation is super helpful. Short, snappy meetings, short, snappy conversations to give, or if it has to be a long conversation, have a break in the middle. And it's these small things in the workplace that actually make the biggest difference for me.
Everyone. That's it. It's like, it's not the gigantic, but like, I think it's being able to have the conversations there and like connect people up to have these conversations that is the most powerful, because it takes away the like fear and the stigma, and like having someone that you can see that knows how to walk through that with you is like a really powerful thing to be able to do.
Yeah, and I wrote a course the other day on how to lead with kindness. So when people are able to look to work with their managers and work with their leaders on the small things, and for me, it starts with the leader, it starts with the manager to be able to give that bit of vulnerability to their team. So there's some relationship and there's a relatable experience within we're in work for so long. We spend so much of our time at work that it doesn't have to be a stressful and destructive place to be. It can be a kind environment, and kind environments do really work.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Thank you. Yeah, because I think there's a lot of fear there. And then I think also, yeah, someone said they seem like sensible ways of working, period. Exactly. That is pretty much the point of it, especially something like, so I think a big difference of when I became an ADHD coach, I was like, oh, but what if I want to coach more people who don't have ADHD? Like, or who do I coach? Like all of these like millions and millions of questions that actually having coached people with ADHD, and especially writing this course, I was like, oh, people with ADHD are really quite hard to coach. I think that a neurotypical person would be super easy. So I've like coached literally everybody, but especially coaching neurotypical people is like a very, very easy thing to do if you know how to coach an ADHD, which is very ironic. But yeah, because these things that we're talking about, they actually just help everybody. Like it's not a difficult thing to do there. And I think getting onto the subject of like fear and like especially to do with ADHD coaching. So like I took a whole year of being coached before I managed to leave my job and do so I did ADCA, which will come to as well. So I can see I've got a question about that. But I paid for this course, I paid £7,000, which was a lot of money. And I really deliberated for that whole year about like whether to become a like accredited qualified solicitor, or whether to like become an ADHD coach. And I was dating someone at the time that was very like professional and very like, went to Oxford and Cambridge. And it was very much like, become a lawyer, don't do that. And I was like, okay, yes, I should do this like real job and like real qualification that's going to actually help me get like a job in the future and like stability and all the stuff. But luckily, I had a mentor when I was working in law who was a lawyer, and she was like, don't do that. She was like, you will hate it. The legal industry isn't ready for like neurodiversity, which really sad, but I think it's very true in my experience there anyway. And like my experience of like working with lawyers and like especially coaching people afterwards of like that are neurodiverse and solicitors, and seeing it, there's only 3% of lawyers that have disclosed a disability compared to 18% of the working population. So yeah, I think the legal industry is one of the ones that's got a bit of a way to go. But so I kind of ended up at the point of just booking an ADHD coaching course. And even before then, I was like starting working with my coach on like coaching people, and she was training me up, kind of like you, like I've been doing with you. And I was just, it was very scary in the beginning, but like from the very second that I started working with people, I could see like the difference it would make, and like how amazing it is to take someone from like feeling so hopeless to feeling like hopeful about the future and knowing what they've got to do. And particularly you got these ADHDers where like, I made a course, I wrote a book, I've done it. In 1 week, you're like you mentioned Ellie is like, hello, I've got a whole new business. Okay. Incredible growth and like incredible passion. And it's so amazing, especially I think for me, like coaching people that are as quick as me in my brain, because we're like, and like we saw that on the retreat as well, which we ran last year, of just having like a whole house filled with people that were all as like wizzy and each other. And I think that doing the coaching course was like an add-on. It was like, so I guess it's a good time to get into the question there of like, what did we get asked? How will it compare with the course from ADCA? So like the ADCA course that I did, it was like 5 hours a week in the evenings, and then we had like learning partners, and we did that for about 8 months. And you have to do a whole section on ADHD for a few months, and then the whole section is like personal transformation. So you kind of go through the experience yourself, and then a whole section on the coaching skills. For me, it was good. It was good, but for me personally, I found it very difficult to do because I need to have like something very engaging and like with people that are like holding me accountable, where I can see like things happening. Like for me, it was really, really good doing coaching because I'd already started coaching. So like by the time I'd even finished this course almost a year later, I was already working like nonstop and like so busy with work. So it's good to be able to see already the growth there of like actually applying these things in practice. But that is it's a combination of like theory and practical. But I think that you don't necessarily have to spend so long learning these skills. I think that because it's quite an expensive investment to do, it means that it's off limits to a lot of people, which is why I wanted to make something that's like a bit more accessible, especially for anyone to do, like anyone that just wants to, like a teacher or a parent that wants to be able to coach someone they care about, like a little bit more accessible. And then I think the accreditation bit is a huge point for me because like I coached a lot of people on becoming coaches. No one has ever asked me for my accreditation or certificate ever. So nothing changed for me when I actually graduated from that course because I was already working. And I think like I could have done the ICF one, but I do not see a point in doing this because I can't be bothered to fill in all of the administrative requirements. And I think you have to give 100 hours of coaching, which definitely done, but it's like actually all of the admin involved in this. Like I had to get my VA to really help me out a lot with like the requirements for the ADCA course because there's a lot of different like things to meet, and it was very, very like complicated, which is very good because it's a very high standard. And that's why like in this course, I really want to have the assessment there and be able to give people feedback and that one-on-one learning and a bit more of a like intuitive like smaller groups sessions, and like more like each session you have like the learning groups, the breakout rooms, kind of like we've already been doing in the ADHD courses. But yeah, I think it's just different things like for different people, but this one is more of a like get working get working or get like. And I think especially for this one, what I wanted to give was the 12-step strategy of coaching people with ADHD, because that can be like ADCA gives a lot of very incredible like strategies and exercises and toolbox, but it can be hard to know how to put these into practice. And particularly if you're someone that is just like a teacher, for example, or like you're just starting out. And when you coach people, normally they're meant to come to the sessions and give you the agenda. And people with ADHD will often come and be like, I don't know. I don't know what I want to talk about. So having a framework there that they can work with, that anybody can pick up and be like, okay, here. And that is based on like, that's something I created based on like executive functioning impacts by ADHD, like self-awareness, memory, organization, and having actual like a way to work with people that you can just pull out and apply to anybody was a big thing of what I wanted to do with this course, so that people have got like a plan to follow for each one. Is that helpful? How do you find that, Georgina? What do you feel like listening to that? Any comments? Want to do a course? Would you do ADCA? What is it for you? Did you think of doing ADCA?
I thought about it, and coming from a technology background, it feels like you're taking an agile and a lean approach to making courses or making things accessible to people. I don't know, you could spend years and years and years planning to build a technology product, or you could make the simplest thing you possibly can, give it to somebody and see if it works. And that's what I feel like you're doing, and you're creating something. Things will either work or it won't work, and then you'll iterate and you'll make it better. And that's how. And also the first course that I did with you, so we've been one-on-one coaching, but I also did the ADHD in 30 days course. You've taken learnings from that, and then you then created the next thing, which is accessible to different types of people, and being able to take an iterative approach to life. I think is a really interesting thing now. Our attention spans are so short, and it's not, the attention span thing isn't just about having ADHD. People are having shorter attention spans. We've got so much access to everything, which then makes it harder to figure out what you actually want to focus on.
Yeah.
So being able to give a framework for people to either dip in and out of, or being able to focus on the smallest thing possible to get the biggest impact.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. This is exactly how when I made the ADHD coaching course, I talked to someone who was like, you need to go and research your customer and blah. And I was like, no, I'm just going to make it. And if one person does it and it helps them, great. But I was like, I'm kind of learning how to make a course. And then like 65 people did that course. They all really liked it. But that's my way. I think having ADHD makes me very like that. I'm like, oh, I would just want to know how to do it. And I want to do it. Like, I don't want to like get into like all of the theory of 500 million hours of like the background of this thing, because I will lose interest. But like very practical and like get doing it right now kind of thing, which is not always, but it doesn't work for everybody. But for me, and there's like different strengths and weaknesses to that approach of it. But I think especially with the, like, that was my point with this. I was like, okay, I don't want to be so overloaded myself with demand. And I want anyone to be able to do this. I don't think that it should be like off like such an exclusive career. Like I'll get a lot of messages from people that say all of the ADHD coaches that I can find are fully booked. So what do I do? I'm like, I'll make more. I'll get to you some more. Oh, 1 minute. And so the same thing there of like, actually, I don't think that it should be like off limits. I'm going to run through the questions because we've got loads of them. So that one there about the accreditation. And yeah, the same I wanted to say about the accreditation for coaching. There's no requirements for coaching, like at all, legal ones. Anyone can call themselves a coach and start working. Anyone can be an ADHD coach. Anyone can get coaching from Access to Work and like for ADHD coaching and use any coach they want. And it's really important there. And like that was never a really big reason I wanted to do it, because it was like, it's better to have some training, better to have like, I take this job extremely seriously, and like I have such strong ethical and like professional like obligations I really take very, very seriously. Just things like you're dealing with people's lives, and it's an extremely vulnerable thing to do. People with ADHD are incredibly vulnerable, and very liable to exploitation. And like it makes me extremely angry to see like exploitation come up, particularly of people like this that are in this world. And as you're saying, their attention spans are becoming so low that we are in the world where everybody is like, do I have ADHD? Maybe. Do this quiz, find out, pay millions of pounds, end up in a diagnosis, and then you're left with no help after that. So I think that's a really, really important point there. And the same with the accreditation things, like I think it's a really nice thing to do. It's important to be able to, I think for me, it's like feeling confident in coaching. Like you now feel confident in coaching other people, but like that confidence often comes from experience, not from like necessarily just a certificate. Like I got a law degree, and after I graduated, I was like, I have no idea how to use this degree. Don't know how I got this degree. And like it's only been through experience that I feel a lot more confident there. Well, when I asked, be interested to know which courses you've done. I'm a coach for ND people and curious what the specific courses teach. So as just mentioned, the one that I did was ADCA. And I think for me in particular, like this course is just basically you get the understanding of like what ADHD is, so that you feel comfortable to talk to people that are going through that process, particularly as like a coach. Because that's something I get a lot as well, like coaches that will say, oh, my clients told me they've got ADHD. What should I do? I'm trying to find them a new ADHD coach. But like that shouldn't be the case, because if you understand ADHD, what they're going through, there's no reason to pass them on to someone else. Like you can coach them yourself. The same, they have the basics of coaching, having that 12-step framework for the executive functioning impacts, because again, like you can just use that as you need to. Like say someone is having a particular problem with time management, then you've got the exercises there to help them. And then like specific areas like reasonable adjustments at work is a really common one, or like relationships, children, really start out coaching kids, very difficult, very good place to start because they're much harder to coach than adults. Things like navigating access to work and the quotes and self-care strategy for you. It's really important because coaching can be a really tough job to do, but like knowing what you need to know to be able to do it consistently is what I've put into this course. Anything you've got to add, Georgina?
I think that last one is pretty fundamental. Like when you're a coach, you're supporting people, and you need to create your own boundaries around yourself. And that's one of the biggest things that I've learned from speaking to you is the boundaries that I have around, how many people I want to speak to at any one time whilst working full time, being able to put those boundaries around myself. And one of the things we touched on right at the beginning is it's the simple things sometimes about, basic self-care of making sure that I get out every day, making sure I see the sun, making sure that, I stretch my legs and get some fresh air. Those kind of things, when your brain is so busy and you want to work and you want to do the absolute most and the absolute best, sometimes those things get left by the wayside. And that's when I struggle. So being able to use strategies of making sure that I get outside, whether it's something I've written on a piece of paper that says go outside, and I've written some, colors and stars and stuff around it, making it novel for me as a reminder is super helpful. And I think the practicalness of coaching is super helpful. You can't learn to swim on the internet was one of my favorite quotes. I don't know where I found it, but you can't learn to swim on the internet. You can get as much theory as you want, but unless you practically apply it, and that works in coaching, that works in technology roles, that works almost anywhere. If you don't do the thing, you necessarily can't do the thing. So I've been learning Serbian for the last year, which has been my hyper focus. And at the beginning, I was super nervous about speaking another language because I didn't feel like I was able to converse. And I've been learning it for a year now, speaking to my partner's mum, and she's been learning English so she can converse with me. So we're on this journey of learning each other's languages so we can create our own conversation, which is really beautiful. And she's taken the opposite approach to me. Every word she learns in English, she will use. And from a practical application point of view of being able to use your new language is phenomenal.
Exactly. I love the analogy there. And I think actually the same with coaching, because I think when I became a coach, I was like, this is the ultimate self-care hack. Woohoo! I'm a coach now. Something I would say is more important than accreditation is like asking coaches because I've got coaches that aren't like accredited by anyone, but like for whatever reason they resonated with me. I trust them, I went ahead with them, and but I always ask like, what coaches do you have? Because I think that is a key question, is like, unless you can explain to someone like, and the same, I think I saw a question about money, but like I charge what I'm willing to pay other people, and I do pay other people. And that is a good benchmark for me, because I think like that's where all the imposter syndrome comes from. But like asking people like, what support do you get and how are you looking after yourself? And then there's a huge like imposter syndrome part of being like, oh, but I'm not looking after myself. I'm coaching people and cleaning the houses and I'm staying in a pile of mess. But actually, like, you're not expected to be a perfect human. And that's what was beautiful about it, is like, it's just helping each other along like every day. And you don't have to be a certain type of person or like have a certain like perfection. And I think a lot of helper careers, they have to go on that journey of learning the boundaries to put in to stay like healthy. I definitely had to. And that's why I think it's really important to pass it along, because especially like not selling people a life where it's like, oh, you're going to be so happy and you're going to love it every day, but like you will love it every day, but you'll also have like harder times, and like knowing how to put the boundaries in, and having, most importantly, which like is something I think has been lacking in the general like thing, is a community of like ADHD coaches. And like essential, so that's what I'm creating with the course as well, like a central like ADHD coaching online like platform for people to be able to share resources with each other and like have supervision groups, and continue that relationship, because that's what is missing, and that's what is like, it can make the job very, very lonely. And I'm really excited to be able to provide that, and like also to have it for myself. Like, I need friends. I need people to help and like bounce these ideas from. I'm gonna go to Stuart, but in the meantime, I was like, actually, but coaching people every single day means that I do like stay accountable to myself and put what I'm coaching, and especially getting the coaching from other people and therapy and things means I can put that back to my clients. So I love it so much. It's just like learning new strategies and applying them on. Stuart asked, what is ADHD medication supposed to do? My experience, it's meant to help with the symptoms of ADHD. Your brain, like there's different kinds of it. I've got a whole chapter in the book, ADHD and A to Z on medication. But essentially, it's just meant to make you feel calmer and have a happier life, I would say. What about you, Gina? Do you have anything to add there?
I think you made a really good point earlier around medication helps you see the mess. Not necessarily mess, I don't know if that's the right word, but it allows you to see more of your brain. That sounds a bit weird, actually. It allows you to see what's happening. But I think coaching is a slightly different thing in that it helps you create the strategies that you can put in place to then support the rest of your journey.
Yeah.
So I think they both have different places in your journey. I'm getting sun in my eyes. I'm going to sit back a little bit.
No one sits down and explains to you when you put on the medication, like what it's supposed to do. And so a big thing when you're coaching people with ADHD is often medication anxiety and like, does this work? What is me? What is my ADHD? Like everything is spiraling out of control. I've got a life sentence. What is it supposed to be doing? And very often it comes down to things like routines. Take it at the same time every single day. Don't take it as prescribed. Don't try to self-medicate. Like all of these things of like actually, like me, I didn't even read the instructions and just like, had a very bad experience in the beginning. We weren't meant to drink coffee or alcohol, and I drank both of them. I had a very terrible experience, which meant I read instructions from there on. But these kind of things of like slowing people down and being like, actually, like the medication, it has a different effect on everybody. It's not a catch-all. It doesn't necessarily help. For me, it helps me quieten down my brain. Like, so it's not having 50 channels playing at the same time. But by itself, it doesn't necessarily help. Like it can help me focus on some things, but like not in a necessarily helpful way. Like I might just redo a page over and over and over again. So that's not actually that helpful. But having the coaching, like you said, there can help me learn the strategies to notice when I'm doing that, pull myself out of it, do something else, how to break the tasks down and how to like actually use that extra brain power. Pete said that they were diagnosed 5 years ago with ADHD. They have a problem with feeling guilty and forgetful, and they felt bad about the job and quit because of that, and they would like to know how we overcame this. Do you have anything to add there?
Do you want to go first and then I'll add to your answer?
Yeah, I had a comment this morning about someone that had quit their jobs multiple times with ADHD. And same, I've had so many, like 25 jobs at least, all of them quit after a minute. And especially after I was diagnosed with ADHD, that was probably the worst time. I like kept starting new jobs and quitting. So I was like, this is it. And I was like, no, I've got ADHD. I know what I'm doing. And then like quitting, and it was a really bad time. And I think that it's just actually understanding your brain, giving yourself a break, understanding your brain, taking the time to like read up about ADHD, learn about it, understand, like being kind to yourself, getting in the routine, like you said, like really healthy self-care, starting with the basics like sleep and eating food, exercise. And then like the workplace stuff comes next of like actually understanding, are you in the right kind of career for you? What environments can help? Like, because there's quite a general situation you put there, but like remembering that it's not your fault and you deserve to have help, but by understanding what impact ADHD might be having on you and the specific challenges you're experiencing, you can then communicate that to others, and like you are legally entitled to support at work for ADHD if it amounts to a disability. So yeah, I think just like learning more about yourself and being nice to yourself and not beating yourself up and thinking that's the end, because that was definitely me in my early 20s. But that's not the case now.
Yeah, and for me, the kindness thing is super important. Like I was diagnosed as this 2 years ago, and it's only in the last few months that I've kind of forgiven myself for being myself, regardless of work of people around me going, actually, I'm okay, I'm enough. And that's been a big journey to get to this point, and also to be able to say that without feeling really tearful.
Yeah.
And I think that's super, super important. And then you can build on the foundations. We don't need to fix everything immediately. If we can, I don't know, if you need to go to the gym and you're feeling like, I'm not going to go to the gym, what's the smallest thing you can do? Put your shoes on. And then once you've got your shoes on, it then becomes easier to do the next thing of getting out the door. It's the Atomic Habits by James Clear is a life-changing book for me. How do you break the biggest things in the world down to the most atomic thing, and then you build your routine and your habit around the smallest entity you can.
Yeah, thank you. I love it. Great coaching. Ben has asked, if society as a whole is to improve for neurodivergence, what do those with lived experience of living undiagnosed think is important in systems for children and young people in terms of identification, assessment, and provision of support for those coming through the process now?
Great question. I spoke to somebody yesterday about this. So a guy that I used to work with 7 or 8 years ago reached out to me about ADHD coaching. And we had a conversation about his 2 children that are going through this process right now. And the support from the school in enabling them to adapt to change has been one of the things that he found really helpful. And also the signs of ADHD, and being able to listen to conversations like this to know that, I'm not a white cis boy, I'm not bouncing off the walls, and I can't concentrate. It's really situational for me. So you can probably see me wriggling around in my seat, and I've got a pen, so you can't see that. But a lot of my hyperactivity is internal. I will think about things, and sometimes it means that I'm super quiet. And for someone to have realised that in me at school, rather than, Gina's a naughty kid and she's never going to do anything with her life, because someone said that to me when I was 12 or 13, and I still remember it. So remembering that those kind of things to say to a kid are really rubbish. And I think if things are to change in schools, teachers and educational systems need to understand more about creating environments that work for neurotypical people and neurodivergent people. And for me, it starts with kindness. That you've no idea what's going on in someone's life. You can see such a small piece of my life right now. Imagine all the other people that are on this call. We can't see you. So starting with that, especially as a grown-up and an adult, I don't necessarily know if I'm a grown-up, starting from that place of kindness, of like, what's actually happening? Why is that kid acting up? They're not always naughty. How can you support them?
Yeah. Oh, I think it's so well put that by you. Like, that's really, it's like not being like, oh, you're in trouble. It's like what we were saying about that feedback thing. It's like asking what's wrong, not like, why aren't you doing this? You're wrong. It's like, what's wrong?
Yeah. And also with kids, like, they don't always know how to express themselves. As we're not taught as kids, well, I definitely wasn't taught as a child or as an adult how to express myself. And it's from having coaching and speaking to a therapist that I've been able to understand my own brain and to be able to express myself in a useful way, rather than acting in a way that's not societally acceptable. If I'm upset and there's a big outburst of emotion, when it happens, they've got no idea why they're behaving in that way. So as an adult, I think, as adults, I think it's our duty to support them through that journey, rather than label them as a good kid or a bad kid, because those labels can stick on their souls for life, and they don't need that.
Yeah, I think particularly important there of like the education. And so like in the course as well, we'll go through they're called education, care and health plans, or EHCP. I always get the letters mixed up. But like there's actually provision for kids. So having coached a few of them, like in adjustments at school, it's often a harder process. Like there's disability students allowance for university students to get coaching as well. But oh, it's so harder than employment and really frustrating. But like I have done that successfully with people before, and it is possible. And like you have to fight a bit for it. But like especially those education, care, and health plans for kids is really important. Because it's putting it down. It's like, no, it doesn't matter. Like I did a talk at my old university last week, and someone said like the lecturers aren't like actually doing what has been agreed, and it's like, okay, so what next? It's like fight. Be really annoying. But like the law does make provisions there for you, but unless you know what your rights are, and as you said there, like know what you even need and like what to fight for, and like self-awareness is one of the executive functioning skills impacted by ADHD up to 30%. So a lot of us, and again, that's why I wanted to make the framework for the course, because it was like, it's really hard to come to coaching. When I have coaching, I'm like, oh, I don't know, blah, and then say like 5 things at the time. And I'm like, what today? I had music therapy this morning and like had to play an instrument. And I was like, what would you want to listen to? I was like, blah. And she was like, I think you're people pleasing me. I was like, yes. But you know, it's like having such a difficult time of like thinking about ourselves, identifying our own needs. I would say as well, as a child that had gone through that undiagnosed, is just having people that you can talk to, and having coached a few of them, like just having someone to talk to where you don't feel weird and you don't feel judged, and you also don't feel like it's a weird medical thing, because like therapy is like awkward, embarrassing as a kid. But that's why I had so many. And she wrote a book called The Reality Manifesto for parents, because I was so inundated by them. But I think, yeah, like finding someone like that for them to talk to. I'm actually working with 2 of my clients at the moment that are specializing in supporting children and young people with ADHD and like other neurodivergent conditions. So drop me a message if you want their details. And that should be part of ADHD Works as well in the future, of like providing that support, because I think it's really, really, really important, and something I'm really passionate about personally, because that, like you, like I've had like my economics teacher asked the whole class if I cheated when they got A's. So that has made me feel like forever like maybe I'm cheating somehow by doing it my way. But just because you're doing it in a different way doesn't mean that it's the wrong way, or that you're cheating. It's like what you said there about the course, for example, like actually it's just doing things in a different, like agile way.
And I think also being able to do things in a different way now is a skill in itself. Like the conforming to boxes, like we're solving challenges that have never been solved before. So in order to solve a new challenge, you need a different way of doing it.
Exactly, like the world that we're in right now. There's an amazing open AI thing that launched this week, and I was like, that's why you need humanity, because like being able to come up with different ideas, creativity, like innovation, these are all the skills we're going to need going forward. Grace has asked, can you get coaching for the NHS? No, I don't think you can. I think you can get various things, like we've mentioned, like Access to Work, who are the government, but like Department of Work and Pensions. Not seeing coaching on the NHS. Therapy, maybe not yet. My one at least haven't got to ADHD specific therapy, but Francis asked if is there financial help for people to pay for the course. This course, your employer might be able to help fund it. We've got templates. If you want to drop us a message, that might be, and like if you're self-employed as well, it might be able to be like a business expense. But this course in particular, because especially it's the first one, I'm trying to make sure that I've got enough like of me available to give everyone on the course the best possible support. So there's a form if you want, like if you work in education or like a charity, drop me a message and I can send you over the form there. And that's still something we're like figuring out, of like how many people can come on this course and which number of places, et cetera, but it's something that I'm like everything I do, I'm like very, very passionate about it being as accessible as possible, but also in the way that it's going to be like as what's the word, ensure that there's like still the quality there for everybody doing it, not too many people on like the live group coaching sessions. So yes, more information on the website and to come. And in general, I would say of the course, like when I was saying about ADCA, I made the money back like within 2-3 clients. So made it back very quickly. I'm sure that it's a very lucrative, weirdly, because there's so much demand and not very many ADHD coaches. So I'm just going through the questions. There's a bit about law there. Yeah, I think Sane said that they're a lawyer and there's a small group of you trying to bring neurodiversity to the profession. There's actually like so many amazing things like the neurodiverse lawyer. And I do think so many lawyers do have different conditions like ADHD, etc. I just don't think a huge amount of them are open about it. There are amazing ones like Sane. And I think like it's a real loss for the sector because having people open about being neurodivergent is like very appealing to 20% of the population who are also neurodivergent, and that vulnerability there, and like human beings too. And I do think that the law provides a really amazing, like adrenaline driven, like purpose filled career for a lot of people, but it can be hard navigating it. From my experience of coaching some lawyers, like they've had really bad experiences of getting adjustments put in place, which has been really frustrating as a coach to support them through. And so that's why I love doing both sides of it and like helping the employers as well. Let's run through them. Charlotte asked how did you, and I guess how are you going to, Georgina, financially transitioned into full-time coaching, and how did I know what to charge? I was extremely fortunate to have my old coach, Stephanie at the ADHD Advocate, that helped me get started and like trained me up, because again, she had so many so much demand, and that's pretty much the plan for me here with the coaching course. So like this will be a first level 1, and then after this course, like the people that do this course can have the opportunity to work like in further development with ADHD Works. Hopefully at some point we'll have ADHD Works coaches that are not just me, and like actually having that running, because I think that is what I would recommend, is like working with coaches already, particularly there for the charging, because like when I coach people on becoming coaches, often they've got stuck at the point of like charging people training rates when they're starting out, like £25 an hour. And then they don't know how to like move up from that. And like the financial aspects there of like having a full-time job. And like when I left my job, I made lots of adjustments. Like I moved house and stuff because I was like, I want to be able to like financially survive. So I'm going to have to reduce my costs of like living. But ironically, then I earned way more than I did in law, and continue to do so. So it's very ironic. But I think that I wouldn't have done that necessarily if I didn't already have my coach that helped me, because I started out working with her. So I was just charging what they were charging. And the same for me, actually, of like having that basis there of like knowing like, okay, I can go work in a shop. I can do whatever I need to do to supplement it. And a big learning thing for me was like actually like following people up, like having coaching myself and like charging my worth. I used to feel really terrible about charging people money for anything ever. But like knowing, especially having access to work there is really amazing, and people's employers fund it for them. It's actually a very, very financially secure job to do, weirdly. And yeah, like, but that for me felt a lot actually better than like asking people to pay for it. But then on the flip side, I've had people pay for coaching themselves, like Georgina, and because you pay that much money, you're then so invested, and it's actually just that transition of like value there and like investment, and people are like, I'm gonna earn all of that money. And I know Georgina has literally made all her money back already from coaching with me. So I think there's all these different elements, but having a plan in place, and if you can start working with someone that's already working, even just getting to know coaches and telling them like, hi, this is what I do, like these are the kind of people I want to be working with, and then they can refer people onto you, because chances are most of them are probably overloaded themselves. How about you, Georgina? How are you going to financially transition out of your job into coaching?
I think that's a really interesting point. So for now, I'm going to stay in my job. So I really enjoy coaching, but I also really enjoy bringing that into the technology sector. And the role that I do within the project management delivery role that I do allows me to work with some incredible people in the technology sector and use my coaching skills in that sector as well. So I'm able to coach people one-on-one, but also work in with bigger organizations. So I think there's multiple ways of doing it. And I think, Leanne, you hit the nail on the head. I don't know the right phrases, but being able to make it work for you and finding somebody or a group of people to support you in bouncing ideas off, because one size doesn't fit all.
Exactly. Very important. Yeah, I'm gonna whiz through the question. If you have to go, you can go. I'll whiz through. I'll be here answering questions for forever. Someone has said they're really struggling with their focus and they've got an assessment. Good luck. Is the course ADHD friendly, e.g. not boring? Yes, I can get, if there is one thing my courses are, they are not boring and they are ADHD friendly. You can confirm this.
I can, and I will confirm they are ADHD friendly. They're very engaging, and also there are things that you can do off the back of them. So you have a video or there's an exercise. So Leanne's always mixing it up with the courses, so you've got a real interactive feel, which brings the novelty aspect. So it gives that short, snappy attention thing.
I think it's, yeah, like I get very bored very quickly and I love it. I love like creating things that are not boring. Yeah, someone's written about the importance of supervision. I think it's definitely there, and like that's what I really wanted to be able to provide here, of like mentoring, supervision, like making sure you've got that support. When I became a coach, I was just terrified. I was like, I can't coach people. And when I would tell people that I was becoming a coach and doing coaching, they were like, you shouldn't be doing that. You can mess up people's lives. And I was like, oh my God. But like working with someone that is already doing that and like can give you the confidence of knowing what to do, especially like for me, having coached now for well over a year, there are still new situations that pop up and it's like all like a learning experience. And this course actually came from me writing a book about coaching first off, of trying to like figure it all out in my head. But yeah, I think like getting really clear there of like your boundaries, what you want from it, like the skills, like who you want to help, like how it can help. And you know, like this course won't be for everyone, so don't do it. But if you do want to do it and you want to have support and like a community, then like I think it'll be a really, really good option. And like the courses that I've done so far, I've just met the most incredible people from them and like lifelong friends. So really happy to be able to take them on to the next level there of like becoming coaches. Do you have anything to add there?
Other than I found your courses and your coaching amazing. Thank you so much.
Francis asked if they still join the community for coaches, as it would be good to have a network. Yes. This course starts in February, the ADHD Works one. I'm going for 6 weeks, and then I'm not sure what I'll do afterwards. I'm not sure if I'll do more courses on coaching and like the cohorts, or if it'll be self-paced. Like they're usually just things we are trying out, seeing what happens, like the response, and then what to do next from it, and like how, just like as you said, testing it out. So, but we'll have that online community there, and the same thing, like it should be available as some kind of option. And I think, because either way, I think it's really, really important to have like a community of like people that can connect with each other. So that will be some kind of option. I'm sorry to the person that was bullied out of their job because of ADHD. And yeah, the pressure of evidence building to prove is huge. Write things down as you go. From what age have I coached children and young adults? I coached 12-year-olds. Yeah, and when I first started, I coached teenagers out, like a lot of them, and they're very amazing to start with, because, and to coach in general, it's amazing, but they can't change their environment like adults can. They don't have as much control over that. Their executive functioning is already still developing anyway. Often they obviously are not paying for the coaching, so they don't have the same level of commitment as adults. And yeah, God, I'm in awe of parents. So you guys are doing a really amazing job. But like it's so incredibly rewarding, and I really loved it a lot. Coaching children and teenagers, and coaching university student now. But yeah, I think having coaching a big range of people is really helpful to get that like spectrum of understanding. Yeah, do you want to coach teenagers and children?
I'm still trying to figure out, like, my ideal client for me is me 2 years ago. I've got the lived experience to be able to support people similar to me, and I haven't quite figured out how many other types of people.
Yeah. Thanks. Okay, I've got a last question. How many people are we taking on? In the course, I think we're going to aim for like 20, 25 people in the course. And then if more than that join, then we can create another like live coaching session in the week, because there's already been a lot of people that have joined. So, and it starts till February. So, if more people than that join, then we'll have like just a different time of the week to do live sessions. And then for me as like an ADHD coach, that will be the thing that will be like announced in February, to join ADHD Works as a coach. And that one will be just a few people, like 10 people. It will include a retreat for the people. It's very exciting. My coach was like, don't tell anyone. So I've just told you all on this, but that's like the next stage. That's be like level 2. Yeah, so it's all like very, very exciting and like planning it out and figuring out how to do it right now. But I think it should be really good, hopefully. But yeah, for me, it's like literally having coaching that's helping me to do all of the things that I do. So I hope to be able to share it with other people and see what comes up and you, the same with you. Like, let's see what you do in the world. You in 6 months will be like, oh, coming on Georgina's retreat. But yeah, is there anything that you want to end on, share with anyone? How can they find you?
You can find me on LinkedIn. My name is Georgina Shute. Thank you so much, Leanne. This has been a great conversation. I think you can't learn to swim on the internet, for me, is my favourite saying at the moment.
I love that. Yeah, and share with us, what do you do? Training, coaching, consulting?
Yeah, so my 3 main services at the moment are one-on-one coaching, neurodiversity workshops and training with organisations, and well, 2 main things. So yeah, find me on LinkedIn, reach out for a chat. Let me know if you want to talk more.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you everybody that has joined. Time for the live sessions right in the middle of your school day. I'm sorry. I'll let you know if we end up having too many people in this one, I'll make one in like the evening. But maybe just drop me an email about that if that's what you would prefer. And if you would like definitely sign up to an evening one, usually probably Wednesdays at 7 o'clock, then drop me an email and I will create you your own hour, because I own the company. It's a great life where you can just create it as you go along. Do these chats get recorded? They do. That will be available on the internet, and it will also be a part of the podcast where people will listen and be really confused as they don't know what we're doing. They can't see us on LinkedIn. But thank you so much for joining us. If you've got any more questions, just drop us a message. If you want to join the coaching course, I would recommend joining that as quickly as you can, because it's been a lot more popular than I anticipated, obviously. And yeah, like once I get to a certain level, then I have to try and close it. And I'm not really sure if I'll do it again. It depends how it goes. Like the retreat, we'll do a retreat again at some point. We've got a long list of people that are like, we want to come on the retreat. But yeah, and drop me a message. You can email hello@adhdworks.info, and for anything like coaching, courses, training, etc. Thank you for joining us. Goodbye.
Thanks so much. Bye.
She's amazing. See you.
Bye.